everyone, Papa Red from Papa Red's Fishing. So in our last video, I kind of gave you a little bit of a sneak peek as to what our next project. But the update on that is this. So you can obviously see we're still in the mold process. We should have these demolded by tomorrow and take a good look, see where we're at on this process, make sure everything's going along according to plan. But once we get this finished up, we're going to put that video together. Hopefully everything turns out well. I want this to be a success video, not a don't do this video. Crossing our fingers. So anyway, in the meantime, I wanted to put something together. This is a kind of a quickie, but it's something that I've been playing around with, and it's very kind of interesting. So this is based on the premise of the fish's natural ability to feel the vibrations in the water as your lure is working its way through the water, whether it's a crankbait, whether it's a lipless crank that's kind of working its way through. But this is based strictly on the vibration and maybe a little bit of sound. We're going to work on trying to get a little bit of rattle in this, but the whole point of this is to make it look like that. If you can see that. If you can't see it, that's the whole point. What I have is I have some Lexon polycarbonate. It's just under ½ an inch thick. It's not quite, probably 3/8 or 7/16 of an inch thick. Anyway, I've been playing around with this. This one is a lipless crankbait. That's what we're going to do with this. But the whole point is to make this as invisible as possible and to see if a fish will actually hit something based solely on the fact that it can feel it, not necessarily see it. So anyway, we're going to get going on this. I'm going to show you what I'm doing. This is pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's no paint. We're going to shape this out. We're going to get it all the contours taken care of, and it's going to be basically a whole lot of time with the Dremel and the buffing wheel to try and get this clear as possible. Then we'll go ahead and we'll put our hardware into it. I'm going to try. I've got some steel BBs that I'm going to use for the weight on this because this does not float at all. It's already going to sink. I just want something that's going to kind of pull it on the bottom. And if we can make a rattle chamber in there, I'm not sure how this is going to work or if it's going to work. But we're going to try and make a little bit of a rattle chamber in there with some BBs, some epoxy, some clear epoxy, and see if we can't get a little bit of a rattle out of it. If not, then it'll just be a weight. But I'm just as much in the dark here on this as you guys are. Like I said, I've got one prototype. It works, but there is no rattle to it. PJ's barking at something. I don't know what it is. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started on this, and I'm going to take you guys along with it. We're going to call this one the ghost bait. If everything works, you'll never see it. So let's get going. Alright, so this is the rough shape I'm going to go ahead and use. And I'm going to take the polycarbonate. It's a little scratched up in some places. Like I said, this is just laying around the shop. But we're going to try and use this area down here. It's not quite that many scratches. Obviously this time we can't cut this out and paste it on. I guess we could, but this is a little easier. We're just going to trace this on here and hit the bandsaw. Alright, let's figure out where the hardware is going to go here. Let's have the line tie right up here at the top of the head. Put a mark there. And then we're going to try and put the rattle chamber somewhere up in here for the weight. So we will put the first hook, let's do it right in here. Should give us plenty of room. And then of course we'll do our trailing hook on the back. We'll put that one right there. So let's start working on that rattle chamber. Alright, so this is the first time around, and you can see how I've got the weight chamber here. I've got 6 steel BBs in here, and these are actually encased in epoxy. What I'd like to do is put maybe 3 in here, and then somehow maybe put an epoxy coat on the bottom here and let those rattle around in there. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not, but you can see where the hardware is drilled in, and that's all epoxied in. Okay, so these holes are plenty big enough for the size of the BB. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take, instead of trying to keep drilling on these, you can see they're off center a little bit, but I'm going to take the Dremel tool and I'm going to open this up between these 2 holes and get this centered so that we've got a nice chamber in there to put a few BBs in, and then we'll start working on getting the epoxy to close it up. Alright, finish the chamber. So you can see I went a little bit too far off to the side with that drill bit, but we're going to take and hopefully get that epoxy to work, and we'll be able to shape that epoxy and smooth that out to get that squared off. But we're going to start working on getting those BBs put in. Alright, so I got 4 BBs in there. I don't know if you can hear this or not. It's not a bad little rattle. So we're going to try and figure out a way to seal those in there. See if I got an idea. Alright, so this is my solution. We're going to take this little plug, we're going to put the ball bearing or the BBs down in there, and then we're going to take this and we're going to slide it right in here. We're going to push this down in like a cork, and then the BBs will be inside there. We'll epoxy this in, sand this down, and we should be golden. So let's get to that. Okay, we got the rough shape all cut in. All the tapers are done on the edges. We've got our BBs sealed in there. You can hear they got a nice little rattle. So we're gonna sand these edges up as fine as we can get them. We're going to get this this all buffed out, try and get as clear as possible. We'll get the hardware made up, put it in, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. Alright, we're polished. At least as good as it's going to get with my little Dremel wheel. I know if I had a bench grinder with a buffing wheel on it, I could probably get it better, but this is definitely going to get the job done as far as the experiment I'm looking for. That's pretty clear. So let's drill some holes, get some hardware installed, get that epoxied in, and see if we can't get this out in the water to see what kind of action we've got. Alright, so here we are, we're out in the water, and we've got the ghost lure. The ghost bait, sorry. So, full disclosure, this is my second time out here to the creek. The first, sorry, a little muddy. The first line tie location that I had all the way in the front really didn't do anything for this. It made it lay over on its side. So I went back to the bait shop, and I ended up drilling 2 more holes and putting 2 more eyelets. And actually the far back one is the one that actually makes this bait work. So we've got some adjustments, no big deal. Everything's trial and error, but this works pretty good. So I'm gonna throw this out here for a little bit, see if I can't get anything. I really don't think I'm going to. There's not a whole lot in this creek as it is, but we're just kind of testing the action on this. And I'm gonna try and get a little bit of a shot for you, but the water's a little bit muddy. We had some rain. I'm actually dodging some raindrops right now, but if this works, you shouldn't see anything. So let's see what we've got. Okay, we're back at the bait shop. Just got back from the creek. On the way home from fishing, I started thinking, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of you that have already figured this out, but this bait wanted to kind of roll up on its side and do one of these numbers. Well, those of you who figured it out, and those that you haven't, this whole front chamber was full of air, along with the BBs. BBs weren't heavy enough. They're just mild steel, so they're not near as heavy as lead or tungsten. So we're going to give up on the whole rattle, and I've already opened this up, taken the BBs out, and we're going to do what we did with the other bait, which did work. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to put 6 BBs in here. I can fit in there, and we're going to fill it with epoxy, let that set up. We're going to clean that up, and we're going to head back down there. I don't know if I'm going to have time tonight. It's getting kind of dark, but we're going to try. So back at it. All right, well, I feel better now. I just went down to the creek, tried that out with the solid chamber. Works great. And so now we got a few different mounting points, but we're going to get this thing back to the bait shop, and we're going to wrap up this video. So we'll see you back at the shop. All right, guys, so we're back here at the bait shop. Yeah, it was too dark for me to get any footage of this working the second time around, but I could see it in the water. You know, I could definitely feel it. It felt way better than it did before. It wasn't trying to lay up on its side. That was silly. So, I mean, I should have seen that. So anyway, here we have it. You can see it's still a little foggy. The water was still pretty cold and it's humid. So it looks like spring's getting here. So anyway, we're going to revisit this once the fishing bite starts to really pick up. You know, if it's working, if other baits are working, I want to switch to this to see if I can go ahead and catch something on a clear bait. I've got this one. I've got the first version. I'm going to try both of them. I'm bound to determine. I'm going to try and catch something. There might be a reason that no one's ever tried to use a clear bait. I'm just going to take this as a challenge. Who knows? Anyway, we'll follow that up again at another time. I want to thank you guys for sticking with me through this whole journey. It's kind of silly, I get it, but you know what? It's something different, and that's what we're here for. Try things, have fun, and try and catch some fish. So anyway, Papa Red, I will see you guys next video.